They have to remember the Bible is a mosaic. All the parts have to fit together into the big picture. Once you apply that to the big picture of the Bible, then it becomes clear. I believe because it's living, because every time you open it up, you learn something new. It's like it's alive. It's not dead. It's constantly talking to us. Each time you open it up, you're looking at it from a different perspective. You're looking at it from a different mind frame. And you see things you never saw before because you're making connections you never had before. But as you study, you make these connections. And you can go deeper and deeper and deeper with it. So it is alive. It's a living book. Well, there's two reasons. Yahweh says that we're approved by him when we study his word, 2 Timothy 2:15. He also calls the Bereans who studied daily whether these things were so in Acts 17 as noble. So we want to have those traits. We want to be approved of him and be even called noble by him. We got a caller one time who asked that same question. What should I do? How do I study the Bible? Well, we said, you can start by reading it. Start by Genesis 1:1, working your way through, or take a chapter or a book and go through it. The problem with that is scientists tell us that in the first 15 minutes, you forget 50% of what you read. So a Bible study where you're actually getting into the Word is the way to go. That's the way you're going to remember these things and apply them then once you learn them and once you know. Good tool. The best is Strong's Concordance, I believe, because it lists all the words of the Bible alphabetically and how each verse uses that word. And that also gives it a number. And with that number, you can go even deeper. You can go into lexicons that are tied to that number, like Thayer's, like Brown Driver Briggs Jacenius. Treasury of Scriptural Knowledge is another way to do it. Or a topical reference, like the Nave's Topical Bible. There are many Bibles out there. They're basically under three different categories. You've got the word for word, which is the King James or the American Standard, which is the most literal. The problem with those is they're also kind of difficult to understand sometimes in the English because they're using basically the Hebrew words into English and through maybe even the Old English, it gets a little bit stilted. Then you have the Thought for Thought Bible that translates what the scribe was thinking into modern English. And that's more of a loose translation like the NIV or the New Revised Standard Version. And it's not as precise as a word for word like we mentioned, or even an interlinear, which is also a good word for word. So the third would be a Bible paraphrase, like the Good News Bible or the Living Bible. That's real loose. It's not good for Bible study, but it gives you the gist of what that chapter is about or that book is about. It's real easy reading, but it's not real good for Bible study if you really want to get into the Word and understand what it says. Well, people say that, they say, well, the Bible's full of contradictions. There's reasons that they find contradictions. One, it could be a translator's issue. He doesn't seem to say the same thing as what you find elsewhere in the Scriptures. But you've got to look at the whole Bible. We have books in our library on all the contradictions of the Bible. And you look at each one, you find there's no contradiction there. When you understand what the verse is saying, there's no contradiction. It also comes from a lack of understanding. A lot of people don't understand the Bible like they should. So they're going to find things that on the surface sound like, well, that doesn't sound right. How can that be when over here it says something else? The people like to pick and choose passages of the Bible, verses, and go off on a bunny trail with it. They have to remember the Bible is a mosaic. All the parts have to fit together into the big picture. Once you apply that to the big picture of the Bible, then it becomes clear. And it says, oh, okay, it can't be this way because the rest of the Bible contradicts that, so I got to rethink what I'm thinking. Because there's really no contradiction in the Bible. There hasn't been found to be contradictory yet. When I do my studies, I like to focus on what Joshua did, how he taught, and what he did, because ultimately, when people ask us, how do you know what's truth? Just follow Joshua. Follow not just some light, Beatitudes, Matthew 5 or something, but actually, what did he do with the word? How did he go out when he spoke to people? What did he say? What did he bring in? Like the kingdom. You never hear that anymore. He spoke the kingdom. That's what we're all preparing for. One day to serve him in the kingdom. But also not just what he said, but what he did. How did he practice his faith? He kept the Sabbath. He kept the feast days. Every day he was out among the people, teaching them. And I mean, that's why he came. And that's why he, I don't know when the Savior ever slept, because he was always out and helping people, serving people. That's what we're supposed to be. That's our living example. Well, yeah, we have a good Bible, a Restoration Study Bible, which we believe combines all of these things. It's of course King James. It's a word for word. We reference the number right in the text. You can go to the back, go to the dictionary, like Strong's dictionary in the Hebrew and Greek, and you can look up that word, what it says in the Old Testament and New Testament. So by that number, then you can, again, like we said, you can go into the word studies. So you can dig deep. You can really dig deep. It also has a topical reference with it. So it's like three books in one. And we highly recommend it, mainly because it's got good study notes. It's got the footnotes are excellent. You can learn a lot just by reading the footnotes. To sum up, always begin and end your studies with a prayer. Ask for Yahweh's guidance and give you the knowledge, the understanding, and the way that you can apply what you learn. And remember these things too. Be consistent and always take time, regular time, to study the Word. You can't do it hit and miss. It's got to be regular. If you really want to learn it, you've got to be into the Word.